is one we've never sung before, but it's one we could learn. So I'm going to bring that back up again, a different song. Thank you. If it plays, if you can see it.
Take a breath, take a seat, take a moment, and just be. Here you are, that's enough. Give yourself permission to unplug. Unplug, unlearn, unwind, unyearn, unseek, unturn, unmove. Unplug, unplay, unmake, unsay, unsing, unthink, undo. Take a breath for yourself, just for you, and no one else. Feel the quiet, feel the love, feel the peace when you unplug. Unlearn, unwind, unyearn, unsee, unturn, unmove. Unplug, unplay, unmake, unsay, unseen, unthink, undo. Unplug, unrush, unbreak, untouch, unpush, unplan, unload. Unplug, undo, unwind, unknow, unwind. Welcome home. Take a breath, take a seat, take a moment, and just be.
This is the time, thank you. This is the time that I get to introduce our speaker. And I'm so thrilled that our Reverend Cheryl Mayes is back with us again, maybe for a couple more times because she announced her retirement, which makes us all sad. But I'm thrilled to have her here. She has been our transition supportive leadership minister who is doing it all from Yakima, Washington, which is pretty amazing, don't you think? So I will just say, take it away, Reverend Cheryl. Unmute. Unmute.
Fine.
God.
There you go.
There. Oh, you wanted me to press it. All right. Hi there. Hello, everybody. I am so glad to be with you again. Oh, I'm going to try to remember to look up at the camera. I was learning that. So we're talking today about count it all joy. Count it all joy. This was something that James in the New Testament of the Bible started his letter by saying, count it all joy. And he was writing this letter as an opportunity to not only encourage communities of followers of Jesus, but also to help them to learn how to live the way of love when life was bringing them challenges. I mean, they thought that maybe following this way would be a bed of roses, and it really wasn't turning out that way, and they weren't quite sure what to do with it. So James is writing them a letter, reminding them that no matter what's happening, God, the divine, is in their midst, and they can count it all joy. So I wanted us to each think about how your last week has been. What's happened in your life in this last week for you? For me, it was a pretty good week. I got to, we made some good connections with family members that we hadn't done. We did some Zoom and some texting. And then Jackson and I got to go kayaking on a beautiful lake on a hot day. And one evening when we were coming out to take a walk in the neighborhood, we looked over and our neighbors were in their yard for the first time in over a week, because both of them had COVID-19.
Mm.
And that's very close if you think about that. We just talked to each other across the driveways, and we were so glad to see them again and know that they were well. And they're both under 50, and it hit them hard. And the woman said, you don't ever want to get this. This was worse than any flu that I've had. But they're healing, and we were so glad to see them again. So those are all things that I could definitely count all joy. There were some other things that weren't quite so easy. As you know, I am from Yakima, and Yakima County has the highest incident per ratio all up and down the West Coast right now of the coronavirus. And so we are not likely to get to move out of our restrictions anytime soon. And that's disappointing. And the other thing that was really weighing on my heart, and I could see it in some of the communications of other ministers, is this uprising of racism and violence that has happened in our nation, that 3 Black American citizens have been senselessly murdered, died. And what do we do with that? How do we maintain ourselves as a compassionate presence to one another and to the greater society in situations like that? And it feels heavy. And so that count it all joy, that's harder. That's not as easy to do. So here's the passage so that you can hear a little bit more than just that one phrase. And I'll save you from having to hear it in the King James Version, because that's pretty archaic language with all of its ye's and therefores. And I want to read it to you, just a little bit of it, from a paraphrase of the Bible called The Message by Eugene Peterson. And this is how he says it. Consider it a sheer gift, friends, when tests and challenges come at you from all sides. You know that under pressure, your faith life is forced into the open and shows its true colors. So don't try to get out of anything prematurely. Let it do its work so you become mature and well developed. mature and well developed. Spiritual maturity is one of the things that helps to create vibrant communities. When we can learn together how to meet life's challenges without tearing each other apart or blaming each other or falling apart. When we can begin to indeed count it all joy. So here's another way of thinking about it, another example. I don't know if any of you read the Science of Mind magazine, but the daily messages this month, May, have been by Reverend David Alt, and they have just been stellar. We have loved reading them together, Jackson and I. And he had one on May 24th that he called Scrub Base, Fill Water. Scrub base, fill water. And what he is telling us about is that when he moved into a house that was outside of Los Angeles, he inherited this old broken down fountain. And he wanted to see if he could get it working again. So, he had to replace the motor and he had to clean it out, but he finally got it filled with water, and oh, it was so beautiful. He just loved it, the soothing sound, and it became one of his favorite places to go to meditate was beside this fountain. Well, it didn't take him very long, with the weather being what it is down in Southern California, to realize that he was going to have to get a very long hose so he could easily refill the water. It kept evaporating. So he did that, and then he discovered that leaves and blossoms from the trees around would get in there, and it would fill up all the little holes, and the water would get stuck and couldn't flow. So he had to continually clean out all the leaves and the flowers. After a while, it developed algae. And so he had to figure out a way to get the algae out of this beautiful fountain. And he went to get a solution and put the solution in, and it killed the flowers around the fountain, and the birds stopped coming. So it's just like this was becoming way more work than he thought it was going to be, this silly fountain. So at times he would just say, forget it, and he would just let it go. But then he would really miss the wonderful sound of the water flowing in this place where he could meditate. And so he would get back to clean it all out again. How did he get out of this kind of cycle? Well, he said what he finally did was decide to let cleaning this fountain out be part of his spiritual practice. Just like we do burning bowls, to clean out those ideas that are no longer serving us. It became his spiritual practice to scrub the base and let the water flow, fill it with water. So he says, because he's great at finding the metaphors for all these things, he says the metaphor was a strong one. Yes, like fountains, this human life is a lot of work. Is our human life a lot of work? Yes, indeed, it is. It takes dedication to continually clear out the debris in our minds so that we can remember our power and live in harmony and circulation. We may seek shortcuts, tire of the process, or abandon the work altogether. Yet the innate longing for this sense of well-being forever calls us to keep clearing what clogs the flow. Like the proverb, chop wood, carry water. That's what happens when you're enlightened. You still chop wood and carry water. He said, I could scrub base, fill water, as a physical reminder to not wait for the end point for joy, but to find it in everything. Do you ever find yourself doing that? To say, well, I'll be happy when. And it just doesn't work, does it? No, this is the moment right now. This is the moment for us to know the joy. And joy is deeper than happiness. Joy is that deep knowing. It bubbles up when we are reminded that we are always in the presence of love, that we are always empowered with all those 12 powers, Marilee, that you talk about with the kids. We are always empowered to live our lives in connection with the one, because we're part of that one. So I love that. I love that. Not wait until the end of the process of whatever's happening to find the joy, but to discover it all along as we go. So whether we gather together in a church building or we gather here in Zoom, count it all joy. Whether we can go out to restaurants or get on a plane and travel someplace wonderful, or find ourselves wearing a mask to go to the grocery store and thinking that going for a walk in the neighborhood is a big outing, count it all joy. We can't always see the big picture of how the goodness of the universe is working things out. And sometimes, in truth, we may not get to see the big picture in our own lifetime. But we can trust that the universe is working in and through us and in and through all things. And that trust, that's faith. That is being willing to perceive things differently. To not just look at what's missing or what doesn't feel right, but to look beyond that. That's the metaphysics. To look beyond that, to see the love and the goodness that is at work among us and in us. About 12 years ago, when I was still the minister at Unity of Yakima, we were having some really difficult financial challenges. It wasn't the first time. I mean, I think all of us in that congregation had a lot to learn about truly trusting the abundance of the universe. But things were starting to look brighter. A couple came forward and said that they would be willing to paint the sanctuary, which was in desperate need of paint and brightening up. They'd do that if we would provide the paint. Well, it took quite a bit even to find enough money to buy the paint, but we got it done and they did the painting, and we just were all rejoicing how beautiful our sanctuary looked. Of course, we tried not to notice that the rest of the church was looking a little scruffy in comparison now, but that we would wait for a better time to deal with that. So it was good. It was progress. A few months later, our administrative assistant, Chris, got a call from our early morning AA group that meets there every day. And they called and said, well, they went downstairs, want somebody to use one of the restrooms, and there was 2 inches of water all over the floor, in the bathroom, in the hallways, going into her office, into the classrooms. Evidently, a little hose on one of the toilets had broken. Thankfully, they were able to stop the water so it wasn't more. And thus began a long process to get it all cleaned up. Have any of you had floods like that? They come in and they suck up all the water, but then that's not enough. They got to bring in these great big huge fans that are really noisy and they blow, and poor Chris had a fan right in her office. And then as time went by, they of course had to get all of the carpet up, and then they had to test for mold, and yes, there was mold, and so then they had to scrape walls, and it just went on and on and on. I don't know how Chris could stand going into the office every day. Furniture had to be put up on blocks. and was going to have to be replaced. Thankfully, we had insurance. And in this whole process, the insurance worked with us step by step. And did I tell you that the basement looked pretty ratty before this? Yeah, the carpet was bad. It needed paint. It just was not looking very welcoming. And I wasn't sure that my office that really had yucky carpet was going to get any attention because it was at the end of the hallway. But there was just enough water that went in there that the insurance said, okay, we'll replace the carpet there and paint it as well. So do you know how long this all took? This took 9 months. 9 months. I think that's significant, don't you? Because it birthed a new attitude in us. After 9 months, we were able to have this amazing celebration service where everybody went out from the sanctuary upstairs down on a tour of our new basement with new carpet, new paint, new office furniture, and a new sense that we were being cared for, that we were in Yakima to put forth our best self. And even if it looked like a disaster, it was indeed a possibility and a rebirth. Count it all joy. Think about times in your life when things felt like they were falling apart, when you just didn't see any good that could come from what was happening. And how many of those times can you see later? Later. Usually it takes some time, but later you could see, oh, I get it. I see what was there for me to learn, or what was there for me to gain that was even better in that situation, from that situation. That's what James was trying to get across to this dear congregation, whoever it was that he was writing to, that they would know that no matter how difficult the circumstances around them might get, that they could count it all joy because we live in an abundant universe that is all love. That's the energy that's behind everything. I want to close this talk today with a beautiful video that is on Unity Worldwide Ministries website. And thank you, Jan, for finding it. It is called The Courage to Imagine. And it's a touching and true story of one family's journey of discovering how they could go from grief back into joy. So Jan, if you will help us to move into that.
Just a moment. Thank you.
John and I have 7 children, including Maddie, who is our youngest. Maddie would be turning 7 in October, and it has been almost 3 years since his death. During that time, we have had to imagine this space in a different way. Some of the process of finding the courage to reimagine this room came out of spiritual growth. We found ourselves at Unity about a year after Maddie's death, and we were in a place where our faith was had been in an upheaval. Maddie faced a bunch of health challenges right off the get-go and got really, really sick when he was 9 days old. And it would be months, actually, until we would bring him home. Initially, we had put a bassinet in our bedroom and a dresser with tiny clothes, and those things came down several months later when we realized he wouldn't be coming home that soon. So then this space was created for him, and I painted and decorated. However, we had to make some major shifts because his medical needs required that this room get transformed into a hospital room. There was a dresser full of medical supplies, there were a ventilator and oxygen, things that helped him to thrive and grow and be part of a family. He learned to crawl in this room. He learned to sit up on his own in this room. This was where joy was. And he eventually needed less and less medical support and was growing at the time when he was absolutely thriving and at what I would call the peak of his life. A sudden illness took his life in a moment. From that moment, I can remember standing beside him, knowing that I would need to pull from deep within and I would need to learn how to breathe again the way he learned to breathe through and feel joy in the midst of all of the challenges he faced. I would have to find that within myself. Healing and choosing healing requires this level of bravery that most of us think we don't have until we're faced with the challenge of stepping into it. The things I was hearing and learning and experiencing at Unity became interwoven into this. My goal was to take things that I could take that were his and reimagine them to be something that would facilitate healing. We're not enshrining somebody that's gone, we're honoring somebody that is still very much a present part of our lives. I began by really creating an openness for very, very different people that live in this home, and just this space where their hearts are safe and protected and loved. The mural that's behind me that I painted for Maddie's arrival, it was important that that be that anchoring part of this room that stayed the same. His mattress in the corner is a resting place, a place where I read, where different ones write in their journals, where naps are taken even from time to time, where tears are shed. This bench, for example, was recreated from his crib. The trunk has some of the things that are the most precious to me in it. Some of his first outfits, what he came home from the hospital in, snippets from his first haircut, all those things that are very precious to every mother and father. I wanted to create a specific space that would be welcoming for our little children. And so this closet was created for them to rest, to connect, to cry, to hide. There's nothing light about this. I miss his frame. I miss his curls. I miss the crook of his neck. I miss the way his body feels next to mine. But what can't ever be taken from me is who he is, and who he continues to be in me in every breath I take, in the way I see my husband laugh, I see Maddie's reflection, Maddie's spirit in him, and the way my children are compassionate and kind and loving human beings, the way they pour out their creativity and express their hearts. I see Maddie. He is in us and through us. This space being created was for that to be part of our family's spiritual practice. The value of meditation and affirmation and prayer. There are as many ways to grieve as there are human beings on this planet. And my process, my family's process, has been ours. I can remember when John and I looked at each other one day and said, we cannot possibly be this sad the rest of our lives. It wasn't that we were, suddenly healed by the thought of it. it was a courageous moment when we said, what if? What if we could create space and tools and opportunities for us to do the hard, brave work of healing in our home together as a family?
So we're inspired. I mean, I am inspired when I see that. Their courage. And let's just use that as an entryway into a time of meditation. And just feel our hearts opened by that video, that story. And if you'd like, just close your eyes if you're comfortable and take a deep breath in. And as you let it out, feel yourself let go of the need to fix everything. Just know that we are in this moment, this time, to bring our own love, our own unique way of being who we are into the world. We're part of the world's healing and our own. We're part of the world's joy and our own. So how could we be anything but grateful? Grateful. In that gratitude, that sense of thank you, Divine Spirit, let's take just a moment in silence. And as we gently bring ourselves out of this silence and maybe open our eyes, we say thank you. Thanks be for all that is, for all that is yet to come. Count it all joy. And so it is.
That was so wonderful. Thank you so much, Reverend Cheryl. You are always the gift to our hearts, and we thank you so much. So this is a time to express that gratitude that we have, that she's talking about. This is a time of our offering. Oops, I'm going backwards. And so if he blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. And I want to give Reverend Cheryl a little gift in our final music piece today. And so that's reflective of something she did for us the last time she spoke. For Jillian of Norwich.
All shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. all shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. I am walking through the green pastures, and I know that I'm not alone. The song of the meadowlark sings to my soul, tenderly calling me home. And all shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. And all shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. La da 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 da. I am walking beside the still waters, as fresh as the breeze at dawn. The voice of my ancestors whispering, giving me the strength to carry on. All shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. And all shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. Surely goodness and mercy will follow, and love will be leading the way. Every shadow will shine in the fullness of time, and bloom in the hearts of the brave. And all shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. All shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. All manner of things shall be well.
Thank you, Jan. That was beautiful.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, and I love that the 23rd Psalm was all wrapped into the word.
It was, it was. So everybody, let's know as we close today, thanking everybody who participated, especially my partner in crime, Joyce Jackson. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Joyce. We spent lots of time together on this, and I'm grateful that we've learned and we'll be better next time, right? So one important announcement that I missed, and that is that the board is considering when we will move into the meeting in person again. They're going to be sending out a survey to ask you some of your thoughts about that, when we'll be comfortable, how it can work. So please, when you get that from the board members, please respond, because we'll be making some choices about how we can actually do that. All right, imagine that you have that beautiful white candle that we always have, that burning that tells us the eternal light. So let's blow out our candle. 1, 2, 3. But we know the light never goes out, because we are the light. We really are the light. We are God in action. And so I'm going to put up the words for the prayer of protection. The power of God transforms us. The presence of God is who we are. Wherever we go, God is, and all is well. Thank you for your gifts. Thank you for your ongoing commitment. And Please come back and bring more friends. Reverend Christine Green is going to be speaking next week, and she too is wonderful. We'll look forward to it. And and then after that is Reverend Julie Applegate, who is also wonderful. And on June 21st, I'm thrilled to announce Reverend Jody Stevenson will be speaking for us from the Denver Boulder area. So, thank you, Joyce. You're going to take us out from recording at this point.